want you to think about that specific feeling in your chest. You know the one. It's that heavy, sinking sensation that hits when you see an email from your credit card provider, or when you're standing at a checkout counter and for a split second, you wonder if the card is actually going to go through. It's not that you don't have the money. Maybe you do, maybe you don't. It's the fact that you don't actually know. And in that moment, not knowing feels safer than the truth. We've all been there. We tell ourselves we'll check the balance tomorrow, or after payday, or when things calm down. But tomorrow comes and goes, and the banking app stays closed. We call it being disorganized. We call it being bad with money. We might even call ourselves lazy or irresponsible. But what if I told you that avoiding your bank account has almost nothing to do with math and everything to do with how your brain is trying to protect you from a perceived predator? Today, I want to talk about why we hide from our own lives. I want to talk about money avoidance, not as a character flaw, but as a stress response. Because the truth is, you aren't failing at finance. You're reacting to a system and a psychology that was never designed for the world we live in today. And once we understand why your brain is slamming the brakes, we can finally start to move forward without the weight of that invisible dread. Most of the time, when we talk about money, we talk about spreadsheets. We talk about getting it together, cutting back on lattes, or grinding harder. The underlying message is always the same. If you aren't looking at your numbers, it's because you lack discipline. We treat financial management like a test of character. If you're successful, you're good. If you're avoiding it, you're bad.
But this perspective is deeply flawed because it ignores how the human brain actually processes fear. When you avoid looking at your bank account, you aren't being bad. You are experiencing a psychological phenomenon known as the Ostrich Effect. It's a cognitive bias where we bury our heads in the sand to avoid information that we perceive as negative. Think about it. Your brain doesn't see a digital balance of $14.50 as just a number. It sees a threat to your security, your status, and your survival. To your primitive brain, a low bank balance feels the same as a rustle in the tall grass. Your amygdala, the part of your brain responsible for the fight or flight response, doesn't know the difference between a predator and a high interest rate. It just knows that this thing causes pain, and its job is to keep you away from pain. So you avoid. You swipe the notification away. You leave the envelopes unopened on the kitchen counter. And for a few hours, or maybe a few days, you feel a sense of relief. You've successfully dodged the predator. But here's the problem with the stress response. While avoidance provides immediate relief, it creates a secondary, much more corrosive type of stress. It's the stress of the unknown. When you don't look, your imagination takes over, and the human imagination is a master at horror stories. In your mind, the debt is bigger than it is. The mistakes are more permanent than they are. The hole is deeper than it truly is. By trying to protect yourself from the sting of the reality, you've accidentally trapped yourself in a room with a monster that grows every time you close your eyes. To understand why this is so hard to break, we have to look at the cycle of financial shame. It usually starts with a trigger. Maybe a month where you spent more than you earned, or an unexpected car repair. That trigger creates anxiety. To deal with the anxiety, you avoid the information. The avoidance leads to a lack of control, which inevitably leads to more financial mistakes, and those mistakes lead back to shame. It's a closed loop. And the reason it's so hard to step out of is that our society has tied our self-worth directly to our net worth. We feel that if our bank account is wrong, then we are wrong. We feel that looking at the numbers is a confrontation with our own failures. But I want you to consider a different perspective. Imagine you were a pilot. If the weather gets bad and the turbulence picks up, would you turn off the radar? Would you close your eyes and hope for the best? Of course not. You'd lean in. You'd want more data, not less. But as humans, when it comes to our personal lives, we tend to do the exact opposite. We turn off the instruments right when the storm hits.
The core of the issue is that we've been conditioned to view money as a moral scoreboard, but money is just a tool. It's a resource. It's essentially stored energy that allows you to move through the world. If you had a hammer that was slightly rusted, you wouldn't feel like a bad person. You just think, I need to clean that hammer so I can use it better. We need to bring that same clinical, compassionate energy to our bank accounts. So, how do we actually break the cycle? How do we move from that paralyzed state of avoidance into a state of clarity? The turning point usually happens when the pain of not knowing becomes greater than the pain of knowing. For many of us, we wait until a crisis forces our hand, a declined card at the grocery store, or a final notice in the mail. But we don't have to wait for the crisis. We can choose to lean in when the stakes are lower. The shift starts with a realization. The numbers in your bank account do not possess the power to define who you are as a human being. They are just a snapshot of a moment in time. They reflect past decisions, yes, but they have no say in your future potential unless you let the fear of them keep you paralyzed. When you finally decide to look, something strange happens. The monster usually shrinks. It's rarely as bad as the version you created in your head at 3 a.m. Even if the numbers are objectively bad, the act of seeing them provides something that avoidance never can, a floor. Once you know the bottom, you can stop falling. You can finally plant your feet and say, okay, this is where I am. Now, where do I want to go? This is where we move into the practical reality of reclaiming your peace of mind. We're not looking for a total life makeover overnight. We're looking for exposure. In psychology, exposure therapy is used to treat phobias by gradually and repeatedly exposing someone to the thing they fear in a safe environment. We can do the same with our finances. If the thought of looking at your full monthly statement makes your heart race, don't do it. Not yet. Start smaller. Start by just opening the app. Don't look at the transactions. Just open it, look at the interface, and close it. Do that for 2 days. Prove to your nervous system that you can engage with the threat and survive. Then, maybe on the 3rd day, you look at the balance. Don't judge it. Don't narrate a story about why it's too low or what you did wrong. Just observe the number as if you were looking at the temperature on a thermometer. It's 42 degrees outside. There is $400 in the account. It's just data. One of the most effective ways to lower the stress response is to take the decision out of the process. If you have to choose to be brave every single morning, eventually you're going to run out of willpower. Instead, try to build a low-friction ritual. Maybe every Friday morning while your coffee is brewing, you do a 60-second check-in. Not a deep dive, not a budget overhaul, just a glance to see what happened this week. When you do this consistently, you're teaching your brain that the bank account isn't a predator. It's just a room in your house that you haven't cleaned in a while. And sure, there might be some dust and maybe some clutter you'd rather not see, but the house isn't on fire. We also need to address the why behind the spending that we're avoiding. Often, we avoid our bank accounts because we're using spending as a way to cope with other stresses. We had a bad day at work, so we bought something online for that hit of dopamine. Then we feel guilty about the purchase, so we avoid the bank account. The avoidance makes us more stressed, which makes us want another hit of dopamine, and the cycle continues. If you can start to see your spending not as a failure of will, but as a cry for comfort, you can be kinder to yourself. When you look at that transaction list, instead of saying, I'm so stupid for buying that, try saying, I was really overwhelmed that day, and I was looking for a way to feel better. I see that now. This kind of self-compassion actually makes you less likely to overspend in the future because you're not trying to escape a mountain of shame. The goal here isn't to become a perfect financial specimen. It's not about having a flawless spreadsheet or never making a mistake again. The goal is simply to be conscious, to live your life with the lights on. There is a profound sense of power that comes from clarity. Even if the news is bad, knowing the truth gives you agency. It gives you the ability to make a plan, and a plan, no matter how small, is the ultimate antidote to anxiety. Anxiety lives in the what-ifs. A plan lives in the what now. I want you to take a deep breath. If you've been avoiding your accounts, if you've been feeling that weight in your chest, I want you to know that you are not alone. There are millions of people doing the exact same thing right now. You aren't uniquely broken, and you aren't bad with money. You are a human being with a brain that is trying very hard to protect you from discomfort. But you are also a human being capable of doing hard things. You are capable of sitting with discomfort for 30 seconds. You are capable of looking at a number and realizing it doesn't define your soul. Tonight, or maybe tomorrow morning, I want you to try it. Just one look. Don't try to fix everything at once. Don't try to pay off the debt in a day. Just turn on the lights. See what's there. And then take a moment to realize that you're still okay. The world didn't end. You're still standing. Financial peace isn't about having a certain amount of money in the bank. It's about the relationship you have with yourself. It's about moving from a place of fear to a place of awareness. It's about realizing that you are the one in the driver's seat, even if the road is a little bumpy right now. Be patient with yourself. This took years to build, and it might take some time to unlearn. But every time you choose to look, you're winning. Every time you choose clarity over avoidance, you're reclaiming a piece of your freedom. Progress doesn't have to be loud. It doesn't have to be a total transformation. Sometimes progress is just opening an app, taking a breath, and realizing that you're going to be okay. Take it one day at a time. You've got this.